Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. What's happening, man? Hey, man, you know what? It's been a minute since we did a video, and so I figured I'd get back on track. You know, I took a little break, but we're back. You know what I mean? We're back. We're back to share some messages, and hopefully that, you know, there's a message out there that we relay that will help somebody, you know, progress in their life of this, you know, life that we live in. You know what I mean? This life of samsara, as we in the Buddhist, you know, tradition call it, this life of suffering, this life of birth and death and sickness and rebirth and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? There's struggle all the time, and our one of the things that I like to do on this channel is to relay messages that will help somebody in their daily life. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I like to share messages of struggles and victories and teachings and lifestyle ways of doing things, concepts, adaptation, that sort of thing, to progress in your life, to live a better, more spiritual and humble and compassionate and mindful life. And you know, that's the whole, I guess, meat and potatoes of why I do the videos and where I want my channel to kind of, you know, progress and get to. So but anyway, if, you know, before we get started, if you would please join me in a moment of silence followed by a serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers, and for those of you who are still bound down to some sort of struggle that keeps us from moving forward in this toxic life that we live in, man. So yeah, if you would please join me in a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. All right, well, check this out, man. Message that I got for you guys today is I wanted to talk to you guys about parables and what they mean and how parables have been helping human beings since ancient times. You know what I mean? Man, you know what? It's like almost, if you really think about it, we live, our lives have derived from some sort of metaphysical type of, you know, story, if you will, concepts, theories. You know what I'm saying? Traditions and parables. I like parables because they're riddles in a sense. You know what I mean? They make you think at a deeper and different level. You know what I'm saying? In other words, a parable activates the part of your neurological stuff in your brain to work. You know what I mean? It's an action type thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I really like parables, because it allows you to dig deep into things that you don't know. You know what I mean? And what better way to change a mental thought process, to change a bad or addictive behavior. You know what I'm saying? And for a lot of us, you know, we need some sort of parable in a sense to understand the things that people are trying to tell you or to help you with and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Because I know myself personally, when I first, like, you know, I'm just going to use the recovery and the 12-step program as an example. You know, I remember, you know, the very early days of that, I could care less, you know what I mean, about what the people were telling me in these rooms, and just, I was like, what the heck are these people telling? I mean, they're weak in a sense to me, you know what I'm saying? That's how I thought. That was my mental thought process at that particular moment in time. I thought these people were weak. They didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And I'm just here because the court's telling me to be here. That sort of thing. You know what I mean? But anyway, what I'm gonna do is let me pull something up here that I saved on my screen. And I'm just going to kind of give you a little definition of what I pulled up for parables. And it says, parables are short, simple stories that use everyday situations to convey deep moral, spiritual, or philosophical lessons. They are often symbolic, meaning the characters and events represent broader truths. Key features of parables are like storytelling with a lesson. You know what I mean? They usually end with a clear or moral or with clear moral or insight. And it's also, they are simple and relatable imagery. They use everyday life things like farmers, seeds, families, workers, used to illustrate profound ideas. You know what I mean? The things that you can see, hear, taste, smell, touch. You know what I'm saying? The tangible things. And also, it's symbolism. Symbolism's characters or objects stand for larger concepts like forgiveness and compassion and wisdom. And also, another key feature is memorable and portable in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Designed to be easy to remember and retell, so the lesson spreads. You know what I mean? And one of the things that I remember in as far as parable type things go is when I was young, I remember my grandfather, my abuelito from Mexico. He would be discussing things with my dad or on my uncles and stuff like that, and he'd always come up with things that he would always say this. He'd always say, "Como dice el dicho." And it's just like giving wisdom, and that type of thing is a parable. He's fixing to lay it on you, man. You know what I'm saying? He's fixing to lay this wisdom on you that you got to figure out. You know what I'm saying? That to me is really cool. You know what I'm saying? That even as a little guy, I was hearing these parables coming out of the wise people in the family, like my grandfather, and at a person who has lived over 90 years, you would think that most people would sit down and listen. You know what I mean? The dude's been somewhere. The dude's lived a life. The dude's got some wisdom for you. You know what I mean? Take that with a grain of salt and dissect that. You know what I mean? Decipher that parable, that dicho in a sense. You know what I'm saying? And that's just for those of you who speak Spanish, you know what I'm talking about. But como dice el dicho means it's like saying a parable in a sense. You're fixing to say, okay, well, this is X, Y, and Z, and it's kind of like I'll give you an example. It's like the Good Samaritan. In a Christian tradition, they teaches compassion beyond social boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Or the mustard seed in the Buddhist and both Buddhist and Christian traditions, where it shows how something small can grow into something vast. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm giving you this wisdom here on this video. I'm planting a seed, and you take that message that I'm giving you and put it into practice in your own life and see if it works for you. You know what I'm saying? And if it doesn't, that's okay. You know what I mean? Because not all parables, not all wisdom works for everybody. Everybody has a certain wisdom, a certain parable that they're going to relate to. And when it meshes with you, you can't get rid of it. You know what I'm saying? It's going to stick with you because it's going to stick with your conscious mind and your faith in your heart and soul. It's a good connection there. You know what I mean? When something gets caught up in that web, right there, that's a beautiful web to catch things in a spiritual sense, in a divine spiritual sense, because you got to be careful, because not only can you catch, good divine wisdom, but you can also catch the dark stuff. So it's very imperative that you're mindful of the parables that you study, that you live by, that you read, that you investigate, and all that stuff, And another example of the parable is the blind man and the elephant in Indian tradition. Illustrates the limits of partial perspectives. You know what I mean? And it's just why they matter. You know what I mean? Parables are powerful because they don't just tell you what to believe. They invite reflection. You interpret them in light of your own experience, which makes the lesson personal and transformative. And that's what I like is that, like I said, every parable is going to be different because we all see life and read and things in different lenses. You know what I'm saying? And the parable is going to work in your life depending on where you're at in your life. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very powerful thing to adapt into your daily routine. Is reading and studying parables, and parables are in every spiritual and religious sect of literature that you can find, from the old Pali canons to the Vedic scriptures to the Holy Bible to the Hermetic laws of Kabbalion, to the all the Buddhist scriptures and stuff, and in the Lotus Sutra books, all the sutras have different parables that they're relaying a different message. And you'll find, if you read these types of things and study these types of things, it not only goes into this religious, spiritual, but also metaphysical types of thinking. And that's what I love about it, because it allows you to think differently. And since you often weave in the Buddhist and recovery metaphors into your work, it says parables could be a rich tool, and they naturally bridge philosophy and healing, and they resonate across cultures also. You know what I mean? That's what I like about it. And another thing I wanted to talk to you about is, in the Buddhist tradition, we use what is called skillful means, and a bunch of the parables in the Buddhist tradition has to do with skillful means. And skillful means is a Sanskrit term meaning apaya, and in Buddhism it refers to the compassion and creative methods used to guide people toward enlightenment, tailored to their unique needs and circumstances. That is a very crucial part right there. You know what I mean? Is that you're using the skillful means to relay a message to the environment that you're in, to the grade of suffering that you're doing. You know what I mean? You could be suffering very little in this thing that you're going through in your life, or you can be suffering a lot. So the parable there and skillful means to relay a message to you will be different. You know what I'm saying? And also, the core meaning of apaya, which is, like I said, the Sanskrit term for skillful means, and it literally means method. You know what I mean? And in the Mahayana Buddhism, it's often paired with a word that is called kausalya or kauslaya, and which means cleverness or skill. And putting both kausalya and apaya together means skillful means. And it emphasizes that different people require different approaches to spiritual guidance. What works for one person may not work for another. And the key principles here that we want to remember is it's compassion driven. The intent is always to help others move closer to awakening. And also, another key principle is it's context sensitive. In other words, it's a teaching or practice may not be ultimately true, but if it helps someone progress, it is considered skillful. In other words, it's kind of like your grandma telling you it's okay, if it's just a little white lie. And some people may think like, oh, what? I mean, you're encouraging lying? No, it's not. It's not that. It's not in an evil, diabolical type of mindset. It's a way that you have to be on the level to whoever you're trying to relay that message to. You know what I'm saying? They have to be able to understand and see you eye to eye so they can get the message. You know what I mean? And it's almost like, say, I'm going to give you this for an example. Say you and I are out somewhere and we got, you got drunk and I had nothing to drink that night. And you're adamant that you want to drive. And I tell you, no, dude, you know what? Let me drive the car, dude. I'll get us there, da da da. But you're adamant, no, man, nobody drives my shit, da da da. And so I tell you, you know what, dude? Check this out, man. I got this bottle of Jack at the house, man. Just screaming your name, dude. Let me drive. We'll freaking crack it open when we get there. All right, I'm down. You know what I mean? Now, okay, now I just told you a little white lie to that skillful means. So now I'm driving because you were intoxicated. I get us back to the place where we're going back home. And then you're like, maybe you're like, okay, where's it at? And then I come up with another little white lie and say, oh man, my bad. I didn't know that my significant other drank it with her friends. Sorry. But by then, you've already simmered down your thought process in a sense. You know what I'm saying? So you're like, okay, whatever, you know what I mean? Or perhaps you fell asleep on the way home and just forgot all about it. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, we are safe from where we could have been if I let you drive. You know what I mean? That is what it's talking about when it's context sensitive. And also another key principle is creative and flexible. Teachers may use stories, metaphors, or unconventional actions to reach people. And that's the same thing what I was just talking about. They use these metaphors and these stories so that they can come to where we're looking at each other eye to eye. Now I understand you, you understand me. I don't think I'm better than you. I'm not being aggressive. You're not being aggressive. We're in this neutral space. Now we can communicate and understand each other. And that is part of what parables do. You know what I mean? And it's just, let me see if I can pull up this other thing that I had. Let me see. Okay. Just a real quick, something else that I just wanted to add. If I could, let me just pull it up. Where's it at? Okay, here we go. And again, this is just another kind of definition, if you will, of parables. And a parable is literally something cast alongside something else. Jesus, for example, parables were stories that were cast alongside a truth in order to illustrate that truth. His parables were teaching aids and can be thought of as extended analogies or inspired comparison. A common description of a parable is that it is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. I like that last part right there, an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And, I love the way parables are there to kind of get you to think in a different way, get you interested in something, you know what I mean? And I think that's why a bunch of these spiritual and religious sects use parables, because it keeps you, it kind of draws you in, and now you don't want to let this go until you figure that parable out. And then when you do, you'll find out that there's another parable in the parable, and then it just keeps going. And it's just like you just drawn in and engulfed in this, illumination of divine energy, in a sense, to me. You know what I mean? That's just my interpretation. And I just find it that it's been one of the, I guess, one of the things in my personal journey that has kept me, magnetized to these, I guess, ways of thinking, ways of learning, and I love that it's that I believe that parables are a philosophical, scientifical, and metaphysical way of relaying messages, and that to me is just it's just right up my alley. You know what I mean? And I love understanding how ancient ancestors and present day people use these parables to navigate their life, and it's, it's, they've been using this type of thing for thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? And we still don't know. We still don't know which one's true, which one works. You know what I'm saying? Because forever people have been doing this, but people have been dying and being born, and the cycle goes on. You know what I'm saying? So who's to say, that the end is coming? You know what I'm saying? Because the end may never come. We could be in the end, or are we in the beginning? You know what I mean? That's the beauty of it, is that it's almost like the Aztec and Mayan serpent circle, that is just, it's like eating it. It's a cycle, and it just doesn't stop. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that, just my personal belief is that in this world that we live in is the true Pure Land, in a sense. In the Buddhist tradition, we call it the Pure Land. And in this land, we have the capability to project ourselves into wherever it is that we're going to go after we are no longer living here, through the work that you do to, I believe, help other people, to help yourself, to help the earth, to however much good you give to this world is gonna, I guess, be the projection of where you'll land in the next life, or in the heavens, wherever that is. You know what I mean? Who knows? I don't know the answer to that, but I have this belief that there's something else after we leave here, and I believe that if we study enough, learn enough, and live a certain way, that will be equipped with this transcendental buildup of merit, if you will, for wherever that is. You know what I mean? And through these parables is some of that information, some of those tools that we need. And it's up to us, because we have this mind up here. We have the gift of free will to pick and choose things, to decipher things. We're the only beings that can do that. You know what I mean? And that's why I believe it's like that. I mean, it's because if it was easy, or in a sense, why not? Why go through all the trouble of this parable, of this riddle, and just tell me? You know what I mean? You would think it would be that easy, but I believe that it's in those parables and those riddles that activate things in the human brain that we are capable of activating, and to find that enlightenment, that nirvana, as in the Buddhist, tradition we believe, and in the Christian tradition would be to find that faith, that light, that illumination. You know what I'm saying? And when you got it, then you know that you're saved, that you're going to be going to heaven, and that, you know what I mean? Because I don't believe that just because you tell just because you say out loud or in your heart and soul that, I believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, that you're good. And I don't believe that. You know what I mean? I believe that that's the first step in the Christian tradition. But you have to do, as we in the Buddhist say, you have to live the Dharma, teach the Dharma. And that means understanding the foundation and living a certain way. And that is in the Eightfold Paths and the six traditions. And in the Christian way of living would be believing that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, and that if you follow these rules, in a sense, that you get the free ticket. You know what I'm saying? That you're not, you still have to get judged and all of that stuff, but who's to say if you do all this stuff, if the judge is going to say, man, well, you missed one. Man, so you didn't get 100, you got a 98. You know what I mean? So I mean, you're gonna have to stay down for 3 more years. Just so you can learn your lesson. No, I don't know. I'm not here to tell you which one's right and which one's wrong, but it's just my belief that you have to do enough, that you have to live your life consistently, on a consistent basis, to not only alleviate your own suffering, but the suffering of others. Be of service to everybody, no matter who they are. You know what I mean? Not having a bias or any type of racial or hate towards anyone, including all living beings. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that type of living, that type of mental thought process opens those neurons, those that are connected to those chakras, that open up that kundalini that opens up to that universe. You know what I'm saying? And it's just it goes deep, but we're not going to get that deep in there today. But I mean, I could keep going and going, but I just wanted to throw that out there today. Parables, man. What do you guys think? You know what I mean? It's just like this Pink Floyd thing here. It's just like a 3-dimensional kind of weird, prism, in a sense. You know what I mean? And you can interpret things a whole lot of different ways, and that's the beauty of being a human being, that we have the ability to do that, it's just living a certain way, man, living a good way, I can tell you this through experience that it's a whole lot better than living a life in the, I guess, evil, dark, cynical type way. You know what I mean? Living a spiritual and divine, connected to the earth, to human beings, to the cosmos, and knowing that you're one, knowing that you're all the same. You know what I mean? Living a life like that in a spiritual sense has allowed me to broaden my thinking, to not live this life that was just guarded. You know what I mean? This mental guardedness, like I had these walls up all the time, man, and I only thought a certain way, and I wasn't going to think any other way. And it got me nowhere, you know what I mean? It got me nowhere. It got me, for sure, addicted to drugs, you know what I mean? Addicted to the street life and just, you know, chaos, you know what I mean? And it wasn't good. Nothing ever good had came out of any of that darkness. And so, except for the fact that I realize it now, that because I've been there, and that's the whole point. The only way to get better at anything and know that it works is to have gone through the bad. You know what I mean? You're going to have to go through some suffering to get to this spiritual and divine way of living. You know what I mean? And understand it, you know, in a way that you see everything as one. You know what I mean? It I guess that would be another topic, but anyway, you know what? Check this out, man. I really appreciate that you guys stuck with me this long and heard some of the things that I had to say. Hopefully, some of the things I said, you know, hit, you know, somebody in, you know, a certain way, and now you're now maybe you're like, okay, I get it now. You know what I mean? And and hopefully this helps. You know what I mean? And maybe if not, just we had us a conversation. How about that? You know what I mean? So it's always good to interact with people, man, and see what they got to say, and you know, and not be judgmental. You know what I mean? Because everybody's got their own opinions, man. Their own opinions and their own world, man. You know what I mean? Everybody has this little world that they're living in, and it's beautiful to me. You know what I mean? And to be able to interact with somebody and see, man, I wonder if some of his world or some of her world works in mine. You know what I mean? And that's the whole purpose of sending these messages out, man, in these parable type of way. You know what I mean? So yeah. But anyway, man, I really appreciate you guys watching, man. I really do. And if you would please at this time hit that subscribe button, man. I can only share this message or all the messages if I get my channel shared. And you know, just know that when you do hit that, if you do hit the subscribe button, just know that when you do that, you're going to be helping out another veteran, another homeless person, another person dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experiences, trauma, anger issues, suicidal thoughts, grief, all those types of things, addiction, suicide, all those types of things, man, because I've dealt with all those things at one point in time in my life, man. And you know what, man? I know a way out. And my way out could be your way out. So I guess until the next time, man, on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.